What if the moment that defined Luffy's life was never truly finished? For over 25 years, fans believed Shanks' lost arm was simply the price of saving a child and teaching him the cruelty of the sea. A powerful, emotional sacrifice, and nothing more. But what if that iconic scene was only the surface of something far darker, far deeper, and far more dangerous? What if Shanks never truly escaped the shadow of IMU, even after that fateful day? Recent revelations have quietly rewritten everything we thought we knew. Hidden contracts, ancient powers, and a mysterious mark that refuses to fade have placed Shanks at the center of the greatest secret in the world. The truth may be unsettling. The arm was not the end of the story, it was only the beginning. And when that story finally reaches its conclusion, the clash between destiny, loyalty, and freedom will shake the very foundation of the One Piece world. Alright, before we dive any deeper and keep this anime storytelling journey alive together, make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments so the hype doesn't die down. Now then, let's get right into the discussion. Let's roll. Alright, hear this out, Nakama. What if Shanks never truly broke his contract with IMU simply by sacrificing his arm? And what if it gets even crazier? What if he didn't even rush to remove it, despite the mark remaining on him for an entire year after he left Mary Geos? In this discussion, we're going to break down the real meaning of that moment and explain why the connection between Shanks and IMU may not be completely severed even now. Over the past 15 or so chapters, Oda finally unveiled a massive secret. The reason the Gorosei and the Holy Knights can teleport, regenerate, and exist as if death itself cannot touch them. All of those terrifying abilities originate from IMU. The exact mechanics are still unclear, but the concept strongly resembles a soul-binding agreement, a contract, or what could be called a covenant. In exchange, the recipient receives overwhelming power, regeneration, immortality, and teleportation. The price is absolute obedience to IMU's will. At first, many assumed only one type of contract existed, but later revelations confirmed that there are actually 3 levels of contract, and that is where everything becomes far more interesting. The first tier is known as the Shallow Sea Contract. This contract grants no special abilities, but the bearer becomes incapable of resisting IMU's direct commands when within close range. The second tier is the Deep Sea Contract. This one provides the full set of monstrous powers we've witnessed: regeneration, teleportation, and immortality, while binding the user to unconditional obedience regardless of distance. This is the contract held by the Holy Knights. The third tier, the Deep Sea Contract, remains largely unknown. However, it is almost certain that only the Gorosei possess it. Its most significant additional power appears to be IMU's ability to directly enter and merge with the Gorosei's bodies, as seen when IMU fused with Saturn at God Valley. This is the key difference between the contracts of the Gorosei and those of the Holy Knights. The existence of these 3 contracts immediately raises a huge question. What is their true purpose? The second-tier contract makes perfect sense: tremendous power in exchange for absolute loyalty. A clean, balanced transaction. The third tier remains too mysterious to fully analyze. But the first tier is the strangest of all. No regeneration. No immortality. No teleportation. IMU's control only functions at close range. So what exactly does the bearer gain? And more importantly, what does IMU gain? The fact that Shanks, Shamrock, and Harold all carried this mark suggests that those who nearly became Holy Knights first received the Shallow Sea Contract. But logically, wouldn't it make more sense for them to simply wait for promotion and receive the Deep Sea Contract directly? Why accept a mark that seems to offer no benefit at all? Then again, this is Oda's writing. Nothing in One Piece exists without purpose. Even details introduced 10 or 20 years ago have returned with relevance. The frozen giants of Punk Hazard, the mystery of the Florian Triangle, the revival of Davy Back Fight, and the legend of Davy Jones after 22 years. Now Oda has brought us back to one of the most defining moments in the entire story. The day Shanks lost his arm, the moment that shaped Luffy's life. That scene was never random. It is now directly connected to the Abyss mark, and this storyline is clearly far from finished. What makes this even more intriguing is that Shanks had no immediate need to cut off his arm. He lived with the mark for an entire year without incident. 14 years ago, Shanks was still spending time with Gabon while carrying that mark. He even stole the Gomu Gomu no Mi under the same condition. Only after a full year did he finally sacrifice his arm. So how does this contract truly function? If removing the arm were enough to sever the connection with IMU, then destroying the mark alone should have sufficed, much like Nami cutting away Arlong's tattoo. But the situation is clearly far more complex. These contracts are not bound to a single limb. If the power resided only in the mark or the arm, then severing the arm of a deep-sea contract holder should halt their regeneration. But it doesn't. Their regeneration continues, because the contract affects the entire body. That means the shallow sea contract follows the same principle. The difference is that it does not grant regenerative abilities. So Shanks truly lost his arm, but the contract itself likely remained intact. The long-standing explanation for Shanks' sacrifice still holds. It was meant to teach Luffy the danger of the sea and the importance of becoming strong enough to protect those he loves. However, because Shanks lived for an entire year with a mark without any apparent consequences, it becomes almost impossible to argue that the arm was sacrificed purely to erase the Abyss mark. There is not even clear evidence that IMU had direct control over Shanks during that year. If the world government truly intended to capture or eliminate Shanks, they had countless opportunities to do so during that period. In fact, Marineford alone would have been the perfect moment to eliminate him if the world government considered him a critical threat. Yet IMU and the Gorosei have never responded to threats in ways we can easily predict. The world government possesses a long list of enemies they could have erased long ago. Luffy as the bearer of Nika's fruit. Dragon, the world's most dangerous criminal and a former marine who once fired upon a celestial dragon. Sabo, Wapol, the remnants of the Rocks pirates. And even those who have personally witnessed IMU's existence. Shanks clearly belongs on that list as well. He lived in Mary Geos for years and undeniably used that access to gather information. He was a pirate before and after that period, yet neither IMU nor the Gorosei ever truly attempted to capture him. His bounty remained like that of any other pirate. Even during the full year when he still carried the Abyss mark, not a single force made a move to stop him. And that leads us to the central question behind all of this. If Shanks sacrificed his arm for Luffy, not to erase the mark, and if that mark remained on him for an entire year, then why did Oda wait over 1,150 chapters to reveal the existence of the Abyss mark at all? If its existence does not change the meaning of Shanks' sacrifice, then what purpose does this revelation truly serve? Especially when, from the beginning, the shallow sea contract itself already felt strange. No power. No immortality. No teleportation. Just a highly limited binding mark. But if Oda deliberately created this first-tier contract, and if Shanks' sacrifice was never meant to remove it directly, then it becomes clear that something far bigger is being set up. We have already seen that IMU is capable of entering and merging with Saturn at God Valley. Locating Shanks would not be difficult for the Gorosei. If IMU truly wanted to, Shanks could have been controlled through them during that entire year, yet it never happened. Because of that, even now we cannot be certain whether the contract is still active. And even if it is, the world government continues to show no serious interest in stopping Shanks. The mark almost certainly affects the entire body, not just the arm or the visible symbol on the skin. If it did not, the mark would logically be placed on a vital point like the chest or heart. So it is reasonable to assume that IMU's contract still operates within Shanks. This may sound shocking, and some fans may dislike the idea, but narratively, it fits Oda's style perfectly. Oda conceived Shanks' sacrifice long before One Piece truly began. In the very first version of Romance Dawn, that scene already existed, Shanks losing his arm and giving Luffy both the Straw Hat and the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Details evolved over time, but Shanks' role was clearly planned from the start. He is the figure who shaped Luffy's life, and Oda prepared his destiny long before the story officially launched. There is also Oda's famous statement, "When Shanks begins appearing frequently, the final saga has begun." Oda understands exactly what role Shanks will play in the final war. At first, the sacrifice was framed as a warm emotional moment, a pirate saving a child and teaching him the harsh reality of the sea. Later, some believed its deeper meaning was the removal of the Abyss mark. But as explained, that interpretation simply does not hold up. In the final war, Oda may deliver his greatest twist. IMU's power still influences Shanks, because cutting off an arm was never enough to cancel the contract. The mark is not merely a stain or tattoo, it goes far deeper than that. This creates a perfect parallel with Sanji. Sanji destroyed his raid suit and believed everything was over. Only later did he realize the power had already fused into his body. Shanks lost his arm and believed everything had ended. But one day, we may witness one of the biggest plot twists in One Piece history. There is even a small possibility that Shanks already knows the contract is not fully gone. That could explain why he only sent Dory, Broggy, and the Giants to Egghead to support Luffy. The Straw Hat crew was facing 5 Gorosei and Kizaru. Escape would have been impossible without that help. Yet Shanks himself stayed away. Perhaps he did not want to meet Luffy yet. Or perhaps he refused to approach the Gorosei, knowing IMU could manifest through them. When the time finally comes and all major players gather in Mary Geos to confront the world government and IMU, the seed Oda planted in Chapter 1 will fully bloom. Shanks will once again stand within IMU's reach. If IMU then takes control of Shanks through the contract, 2 major outcomes become likely. First, and this is crucial for Shanks fans, he will not die because of the contract itself. He may die someday, but not in the same way as Rox or Harold. That type of tragedy has already been used twice, and its emotional impact has been spent. If Oda ever chooses to end Shanks' life, it will not be done cheaply or simply. Shanks' death, if it happens, must shake the entire world of One Piece. From the very beginning, Shanks' future has been the hardest to predict. Other mysterious figures have clearer goals. Dragon seeks to overthrow the world government. Blackbeard seeks the throne of the world. Buggy wants wealth and glory. Akiji is confusing, but almost certainly a double agent. But Shanks? His objective has always remained unclear. For years, many believed Shanks existed only to stop Blackbeard. Theories spread that Blackbeard would kill Shanks and Luffy would seek revenge. But honestly, that is far too cliché and far too lazy for Oda. More importantly, Oda respects Shanks too much to allow him to fall that way. Even Oda's editor, who knows the ending of One Piece, stated in a film-read interview that Shanks is as important to the overall story as Luffy himself. So it is almost impossible that Oda would build this much mystery just to discard Shanks quickly at Blackbeard's hands. Especially now that we know Shanks once lived in Mary Geos and carried the Abyss mark. As time passes, Shanks' role only grows larger, and the mystery around him deepens. So the theory of Blackbeard kills Shanks can be put to rest. Now let's return to IMU. If IMU's order is not meant to kill or defeat Shanks directly, then what is the true function of their contract? Here is the most likely answer. The true battle between Luffy and Shanks. This clash has been foreshadowed since Chapter 1. Originally, fans imagined Luffy would fight Shanks simply to prove he had become a great pirate with an incredible crew. Later, Luffy's words at Punk Hazard fueled the idea that he would defeat every Yonko, with Shanks as the final one. After Big Mom and Kaido fell, many believed Shanks' turn had come. But now, none of those scenarios truly fit anymore. The evil Shanks theory also collapsed. And a friendly sparring match at the end of the story would feel flat and unsatisfying. What makes the most sense is this. The contract between IMU and Shanks never truly ended. When IMU finally seizes control of Shanks in Mary Geos, Luffy and Shanks will be forced to fight. Not a symbolic duel, but a full, merciless clash of power. Luffy will prove he has truly reached Shanks' level. We have already seen how IMU creates such impossible confrontations. Rox fought Whitebeard and struck Kaido, then forced Roger and Garp to kill him. King Harold fought Loki, slaughtered his own soldiers, and stabbed Jiru. Even Dory and Broggy were turned against their own nature. Following this pattern, Luffy versus Shanks, with Shanks stripped of free will, becomes completely logical. Shanks will have no regeneration, no freedom of choice, and will fight with everything he has. Luffy will have no option but to do the same. There will be no winner. Only a collision that proves they are truly equals. In the end, Shanks will be freed from the contract. This may happen because the man marked by flames has already done so, believed to be a former Gorosei or Holy Knight who escaped IMU's control. Saturn himself was once burned by black flames until he became a skeleton. That hidden legend may have survived a similar fate and now guards the Fourth Road Poneglyph. Shanks may free himself through his own will and haki, which Dory and Broggy claim rivals Joy Boy. Or Luffy may release him using a new power that directly counters IMU's authority. Long ago, Shanks saved a small boy and taught him the meaning of strength in protecting others. In the end, that boy may prove he has become strong enough to save Shanks. Shanks likely will not die in this process, but he will almost certainly be gravely wounded. A similar fate may await Shanks. After more than 25 years of waiting, we will finally witness his full power. The power that has always been legendary in One Piece. He will leave a devastating mark on IMU, the Gorosei, or whoever stands against him. But afterward, he may be crippled, permanently weakened, or stripped of everything. And if that happens, the journey that began with a lost arm will end with a complete legend. Big thanks to everyone who stayed all the way to the end. If anything's on your mind or you've got questions, drop them in the comments below. Appreciate you for watching, and catch you in the next videos.